Today, we're diving into a local zoning fight happening in Gwinnett County, Georgia. And I know, that might not sound super exciting, but trust me, this isn't just about rules and regulations. This is a story about a community that felt completely ignored, decided to get organized, and challenge the entire system. It's really a case study for a question that suburbs all over the country are facing. Who gets to decide what our communities look and feel like?
I mean, that question right there, that's what this is all about. For hundreds of families, this isn't some hypothetical. A single proposal for a new development has turned their neighborhood into the front line of a really intense fight with developers and, their own local government.
All right, so how did this all kick off? Well, it started with a plan to build a brand new funeral home. And this is the key part, complete with its own crematorium smack in the middle of a residential area. As you can imagine, that proposal sparked some pretty fierce opposition, like right away.
Now, what's really important to see here is the proximity. We're not talking about a project miles away in some industrial park. No, this development is planned for a piece of land that is literally bordering 2 subdivisions, home to nearly 400 families. We're talking right next door.
And this right here, this is the spark that lit the whole fuse. A huge part of the anger from the community came from this feeling of being completely blindsided. Residents said the decision was just made, without any proper notification or any real chance for them to weigh in. And that's what got them to organize and start fighting back.
The pushback wasn't just about how it happened, though. The community quickly got organized around a set of very specific, very real fears about what this development would actually mean for their neighborhood day to day. And the scale here is a really big deal. Within just a 1-mile circle of this proposed site, you've got over 6,000 residents. And that number includes not just families, but daycares and senior centers, some of the community's most vulnerable people. And then there's the money. Beyond the emotional stuff, there was a deep, deep fear about the financial hit. Residents figured out it could mean a potential loss in property value of up to $50,000 per household. For most families, that's not just an inconvenience. That is a devastating blow to their single biggest investment.
This chart just illustrates the concern about scale perfectly. The developer asked for 161 parking spaces. That is a staggering 182% increase over the 57 that are normally allowed by the rules. I mean, that one number just paints a crystal clear picture of the kind of massive traffic surge they were worried about.
So the key takeaway here is that this was an opposition with a lot of layers. It was about traffic, yeah, but it was also about potential health risks from crematory emissions, environmental concerns like water runoff from a giant new parking lot, and just that bigger, overarching feeling of being completely ignored. So, faced with all these worries, the residents didn't just make signs and protest, they got organized. They formed a group called the Centerville Highway Corridor, and they took their fight to the next level. They filed a formal lawsuit in Gwinnett County Superior Court.
Okay, so to really understand their case, we have to get this key term, a zoning variance. It's not supposed to be a rubber stamp. Think of it like a special permission slip to break the rules, and it's only meant for properties that have some kind of unique hardship that makes following the rules totally impossible.
And this slide, this is pretty much the entire case in a nutshell. On the left, you see the county's own law, clear as day. A variance needs a unique condition. And on the right, the developer's own application, where when they're asked the direct question, is the condition unique, the answer is simply no. That contradiction is the entire foundation of their legal challenge. So, all this pressure, the community getting organized, the media attention, and of course, the lawsuit, it actually had an effect. Gwinnett County officials started to take notice, and they responded with a pretty significant, even if it is temporary, action. They issued what's called a moratorium, and simply put, it's just a timeout. The County Board of Commissioners basically decided to hit the big pause button, putting a temporary freeze on these kinds of applications so they could have some time to step back and review their own development rules.
So to be specific, this temporary freeze is going to be in effect through October 31st, 2025. And it doesn't just apply to new crematorias, but also other businesses like emissions inspection facilities. The whole point is to allow time for public hearings to review and maybe even change the very rules at the center of this whole fight.
But how are the residents seeing this? Well, this quote, which comes from the community group itself, it says it all. While they're glad their voices are finally being heard, they know this is just one step. The original project approval is still on the books, and their fight is far from over. Which brings us to the big question. What now?
I mean, this story is moving incredibly fast, and there are several critical events coming up that are going to determine the final outcome, not just for this community, but maybe for the whole county.
The month of October is going to be absolutely packed. On the 7th, you've got the public hearings on the new county rules. The very next day, October 8th, the residents' lawsuit has its first day in court. And then, at the end of the month, on the 28th, the Board of Commissioners holds the final, decisive vote on all these changes.
And there has been a really major development. Just recently, the Gwinnett County Planning Commission voted unanimously in favor of the residents' key demands. They want to bring back permit requirements and, this is huge, add a 1,000-foot buffer between crematories and residential areas. It's a massive victory for them, but the final vote still rests with the Board of Commissioners.
So in the run-up to that final vote, the community group has organized a really clear call to action for everyone who supports them. They're being asked to email the commissioners, to share the message far and wide, and to show up to that final meeting on October 28th wearing white to show their unity.
And this quote really frames the bigger stakes here. For the people involved, this has grown way beyond a fight over a single development. They really see it as a battle for the soul of the entire county's zoning process. It's about fairness, transparency, and just making sure every single resident has a voice.
Which leaves us with this central, unanswered question. The county's moratorium bought everybody some breathing room, right? A moment to step back and reevaluate everything. But what was it all for?
Is this pause actually going to lead to a real, lasting solution that balances development with protecting the community? Or is it just delaying a fundamental conflict that was bound to happen anyway? The events of the next few weeks are going to give us the answer. And really, it's a story that's playing out in growing suburbs all over the country, where the lines between commercial growth and community character are being redrawn, one zoning battle at a time.